I want to caution people against closing their eyes and they stop learning, they stop growing, because this is the blueprint for how we are to live, how we are to build this temple. And it's the sword of the Spirit. The Spirit doesn't do a whole lot, can't go beyond a certain point in your life until you really pick up and have a love for this book. This is the bread of life. This is the table of showbread. And yet we neglect it. It sits and collects dust. People have died. Many, many people died trying to translate this book and to where we have it now. Think of it as having a Bible helps you to be in the inner court. And the inner court is where it is like the ark. The inner court of the tabernacle is like the ark. The outer court is the sea and the chaos and the judgment. The inner court is read, pray, obey, which prepares you for the rest. And think of it this way. The Bible talks about Christ being the veil. Well, get through the first veil. Go through the first veil into the tabernacle. Go from the court of judgment to the court of sanctification, that you will be veiled by Christ. That veil will be between you and the court of judgment. Because remember, judgment of the wicked is deliverance for the righteous. We should not have to fear judgment if we're living the ketubah, the wedding contract, the marriage contract. We should not have to fear judgment. At least not in the sense that the world does. And it's so important. Read, pray, obey. That's how you grow. You get through the outer court to deal with sin. The burnt Yeshua being the burnt offering and the sin offering and all these different things. That's well and good. And baptism, that's important. But guess what? You have to be in the inner court. You have to be in the inner court to avoid judgment. And you want an abundant life? Spend your time in this book and live it. Don't get into this attitude of, oh, well, I've learned enough, so I don't have to learn anymore. That's dangerous. That is extremely dangerous. I can tell you from personal experience. I grew up with the Sabbath, the holy days, and the clean foods. Those basic three, which a lot of, you get people that believe that. But let's not be the Church of Laodicea, to be lukewarm. Let's be all in. Tzitzit, head covering, modesty, loving one another, loving people, showing love, showing compassion, a light. There's plenty of wickedness in this world. Let's be a light. That's what we have to do, is be a light. And you can read the parable that you can read in Matthew, where it says, many will say to me, Lord, Lord. And he will say, depart Depart from me, for I never knew you, you who practice lawlessness, Torahlessness. Christ said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments, and my commandments are not a burden to you. Is it a suffering to look, to be set apart? We are in this world, but not of this world. This is what keeps us from being of this world. This book, living this book and taking this book seriously, is what keeps us from being of the world. Because this tells us how to love. You know, you don't move your neighbor's boundary markers. You don't stay silent if you are called to give testimony. You can't stay silent. You have to say what you know. You have to. If you see a need, try to meet it. The whole thing of it's love to not harvest the edges of your field. Granted, a lot of us don't have fields anymore, but the concept is about providing for the poor. One of the reasons why this world is such a mess is because the church has checked out. They've let the welfare state replace them. And then we wonder why this world is in such a nightmare. I mean, there's so much. I grew up with the Sabbath, the holy days, the clean meats. But there's so much more in this to learn. Zitzi were life-changing for me. And that's all I want to know. That's why I do what I do. I want to see... I won't see it, I'm sure. Because I don't know any people personally, generally. But hopefully, it will be life-changing for you. You know? This is so important. This shouldn't collect dust. This should be falling apart. I've got several of them like this. And it's not to say I'm perfect. By no means am I perfect. But this is what this particular Bible looks like right now. I've got all the way up to Exodus falling out of my Bible. In another one of them, in one of my old Bibles, I've got a bunch of the New Testament that is taped in or falling out of it. We have to. That doesn't make me perfect by any means, but we have to want to live by this book to show people love, compassion. You know, not and being willing to have symbols that set us apart. The Zitzi set us apart. That they're an accountability, saying, you belong to the Heavenly Father, and people are going to be watching you. People will watch you behave. And we will blaspheme the God if we don't live according to this book, according to His dictates of what love is. The whole point of not sowing two kinds of seed, and not having garments of wool and linen, and not shaving our beards to wear like the goatees and stuff, harming the edges of our beards, whether it be for someone mourning. People don't know if you're mourning or not. It's one of those things. We need to be people of the book, so to speak. People of the book. And our lifestyles will show if we are of this book or not. And judgment is coming. It is coming. Make no mistake about that. Shalom, shalom.